It may be hard to see, but this next portion of this video here this is Photoshop Audition, okay? I have recorded what I believe are linear energy, well, not linear energy, but radiological dispersals. When you actually break it down to its core function, it means something pretty significant. All it really requires is gamma dispersal. So gamma dispersal basically is we're talking about Y particles that might be accelerated and cause the exacerbation of what is called secondary electron effects, but that's going too far into detail. What I'm going to do is play this clip. It's a short example of what I have. It's only 2 minutes long of what they actually sound like. And I'm going to pump the volume up on these, but these are going through outlets, electronics, devices. Now, when I talk about SEU, SEL, these radiological dispersals are actually occurring at the power source or load. The power load, when you actually receive an AC, an alternating current, and it becomes direct current or it continues on as some form of whatever it might be. But as far as most electronics are concerned, they have a motherboard, some hardware, and then all of the currents are supposed to be positive current conduction. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on how the setup is. So you're in and out. Basically, this would be on the inside source, and power source would be an area of very low positive attrition, so low on electrons, meaning that any positive external signal that might be an alternating current is going to conduct in that area. It would be a weak point if it were exposed, because it is the N type, and these would be your negative electrons basically, and your negative electrons are pushed outward towards input or whatever, drain, whatever they want to call it, on the P side of the device, and they come back around in a circuit. This would be your circuitry, how your electrical flow in your devices. I am a novice at this. I just started looking into it because I didn't get the chance to. So continuing on, there. That large sound right there was what I have found to be a radiological dispersal that is exacerbated by electromagnetic frequencies and line attenuation or dirty electric. And it seems to be at this point a product of smart meters, AMR meters, and any meter that has a function available to be remotely monitored by crop duster planes from the FBI flying over your home looking to discriminate against you by metering you, picking up your Wi-Fi and picking up any cell phones you have in the area, or Black Huey helicopters looking for your local nearest pedophile or whatever they want to, screw you over with in a legal database somewhere saying that they're conducting surveillance on you because you are XYABZ. Okay? So you will notice that there's a high probability that all of these helicopter flyovers and plane flyovers and commercial plane flyovers have a lot to do with radiological dispersals and what is called HARP. But unfortunately, using those terms is taboo right now, and you have a posse of prejudiced white American citizens, Republicans, just plastered all over the internet right now, looking to censor, redirect your services, redirect your internet connection, throttle, deprive you, and censor any information and denounce anything that is revealing white privilege. So as I just explained, these are individuals who are currently benefiting and living very well in the United States or very happy. These are blind patriots. These are the guys that say, yeah, go bomb them, okay? They're not the ones who are being assaulted by this harassment. So the issue arises when you're a minority and you are the group that they're actually looking for, and using 9/11 and terrorism as an excuse to go around and illegally search and seize the assets in your home, and to find any and everything that they can use against you to legitimize the surveillance, and to park there for an extended period of time until they either find something or until they have sufficient evidence to, whatever, classify you as a certain type of citizen in an illegal database somewhere. So individuals who are looking to have a little more control, like myself, unfortunately, don't have the resources right now to be an honest and earnest citizen in the United States. And if you are a minority, by a large demand and large popularity, I would not be considered a United States citizen that should have any rights. And a lot of these have become harbored biases and prejudices that you won't experience unless you are actually a minority and you go to seek what you deserve and seek what you have worked for and seek the full extent of your rights and privileges. You will find that there are more than many ample white American citizens who will stand in your way happily and will use any social reason as cause for discrimination or bias or underprivilege. In my experience right now, which is, my current situation, I am having a hard time getting a job, but at the same time, this harassment, this program serves as a deterrent because it is intended to impair you and strip you of your ability to work and earn a living by giving you ample social stigmas and stipulations that white citizens are going to use as a reason to deny you a job. The first thing that you need to survive in this country, which is a job. So by stripping you with the linear energy weapons, they are able to allow what people do best: discriminate, deny, and ignore individuals who aren't up to par or up to snuff to their standards. And by far, most minorities aren't in this country. And so, really it's just reinforcing what already exists, which is a prejudice bias. Anyway, long story short, that's way longer than I should have talked about it. I'm going to play the rest of this video without talking. I have lived in this home for 20 some odd years, and this has never occurred up until 2013. Very late 2013 is when it began, with the end of black helicopters flying very low over the home, a lot of aircraft flying very low over the home, and with the beginning of chemtrails in this area, which seems like chemtrails in 2013. I have never seen anything like it prior, and like I said, I've been in this house for some time now. Now that should be more than audible for most people to hear. And I said this is only a monitor. I have a dozen different devices in the home doing the same thing. And it should be apparent that this is not normal. Some people think it's normal in their home, but it's not. You've got a serious electrical problem going on in your home if something's actually occurring in your electronics at the power source end of the device, and it's actually making audible sounds like that you can hear on a two-story home all the way in the upper floor of the home. So a television, for example, on one end of the home in the upper floor, I can hear a television all the way in the basement with the door half open at one point, and continue on because there's some other very large ones. And I just want to take the moment to say right now that I have condensed some of these and removed a lot of the extra other noises that were in, because a lot of these clips I recorded hours of it, hours and hours of it. That one right there was the closest to the recorder, and that is the sound of metal. That ka-chink action there is something that I've heard frequently through the device. That should not occur. It is in the inside of the electronic device. It is not the plastic. I understand bezels, I understand plastic and static electricity buildup, etc., etc. That is not the issue. I have put static removal cleaner on it. I have wiped it. I have blown dust out of it. I've done every reasonable thing you can think of, including testing brand new devices that have no dust, are new hardware, and are doing exactly the same thing. So now, when you go to a doctor and you try to explain something like this, and this is a very far, I mean, this is really pulling it. If you're someone who has a clue about anything going on around you, this is really bare bones evidence of anything going on in your home right now, because they have very easy ways to denounce and deny things like this. And it's unfortunate, because when you go to a doctor, like myself, you will get defrauded immediately as schizophrenic. You won't get any further than a couple words with the doctor. They will make a judgment within the first couple of seconds. It is the easiest thing for a doctor to diagnose. They make that decision in just a minute, or just a couple seconds of you talking, because either they have prior knowledge of what they need to do to individuals such as yourself, which is, it's pretty apparent by policy and proxy, as I explained. They are limited in the resources that they have. No doctor will stick their neck out to say, no, you are not schizophrenic, and no, you are not paranoid. So that was my whole point of doing these recordings, and luckily they were dumb enough to do enough damage and to be so nosy and so arrogant that they would actually start using much more lethal and volatile forms of surveillance on the home and disruption, using grid hacking or whatever form that they're using right now, in addition to HARP, if it is there, to actually do harassment, surveillance, and sabotage in the home, because they are that confident that they won't be caught, which they won't, and that you have no resources to catch them, and no doctor, scientist, law enforcement agent, or anybody is going to stick their neck out, let alone be that guy to go up against the United States, because these are the individuals, as I said, would rather take the fact that they are not on the list and take their ass out to the fucking bar and drink down alcohol every day and just live up, the good life, what they consider the good life. So there's a lot of turning against individuals who prefer to be at home and in their own and in peace and enjoy home entertainment and that sort. And I'm not really sure entirely what the foundings of all of the hate crime is, but it involves a number of things. So that's the end of that video. I have some others here, but I'm not sure that they are radiological dispersals. Here's another one. This one's a lot quicker. There's some metal in the background. That's my shielding that I've used before, and it works. It absorbs heat. what I've noticed that these are the same radiological dispersals that are being used on the bodies of individuals who are now developing what is called electrical hypersensitivity. And what they have found is that they can cause individuals to develop this by there is an invasive means. I'm not entirely sure right now, but I do believe it is diet based. It is not only ingestion based, potentially from chemtrails, through transsynaptic functions, and basically what I'm saying is they go through the neural axons in the olfactory bulb, and which is the quickest route to the I believe is the meninges and the basal ganglia. If you transsynaptically uptake some kind of agent, it runs right to the central brain lobe. Probably one of the easiest routes, and this is why a lot of people take crack through the nose. So as you can tell, that these radiological dispersals, and I apologize, I forgot what I was saying here. This is part of the impairment from the torture with the linear energy weapons. There you will go to bed at night and you will lie there, and one day you will start getting threats. And there's like staging. They stage you into this. There's no immediate, it goes right into what is called hearing voices in your head. It doesn't actually occur like that, even though how similar it is. It unfortunately is being generalized that way right now, which it's not. It's not schizophrenia, because there's too many different facts, or too many facts and too many different things and concrete evidence against it. But most doctors are an agent to the discrimination, and I really do believe at this point that they realize that you are a victim of eugenics, and their job is basically to keep their mouths silent and forward you along. And the issue with that is the testing is not sufficient enough. And the testing that is sufficient enough you do not have access to. So you will never get the resources that you need, because the facilities that do only take lump sum money. You'll never get anything you want in this country without lump sum money that's actually going to help you, whether it be to further your life or to save you, with a medical condition. Unless you have some deep pockets, you won't get any help with this or the evidence that you need. What you're going to find is just a lot of really low rent, piss poor doctors who probably got through medical school by the skin of their teeth and kind of settled for a specialty. So they're not working out of a hospital or anything, and don't work with a number of illnesses. But a lot of them do go due to a couple schools, but I find it baffling that a lot of them are lacking the basics. They're lacking the basics and are heavily dependent on scans, MRIs, and just are seemingly lacking that physiological knowledge of the body and what occurs to it when it is inflicted by things that they are not trained on, which is radiation and electromagnetic fields and poisoning. There are a lot of these things that really are going to total your life. You will have a hard time finding a doctor that understands a lick about it if it doesn't show up on an MRI scan. These are not good. These are audible throughout an entire room. They're not minuscule, but what I've found that a large number of individuals have a very, very low hearing range, and they can't hear it. They cannot hear these clicks and pops and radiological dispersals in the home, because they are that narrow-minded and either ignorant or stubborn. And these are the individuals who get the fly. Individuals such as myself, who have excellent hearing, are at odds against white supremacy and white privilege. And because I'm a minority, they don't necessarily want an individual like me around, because I usually call them out on when I want something from them, or I want equality or equal rights. And that seems to be the premise of how I got here, in addition to race-motivated eugenics as being the primary reason I got here. But I would definitely say that social reasons and heavy stalking. These individuals are perverts. They are perverts. They are the worst kind. They like corruption. They like sociopaths. They are perverts. They like the perversion of individuals in order to accept them as, in order to offer them money. And they want the individuals who are going to pervert themselves out the most for money. And so they look at a lot of people as, what do I get in return? They want you to be of a very useful to them or a pervert of social pathological interests. So these are very loud. They are enough to damage equipment. I've had a number of computers damaged by this and electronics damaged and impaired by it. And it causes channel damage. It causes firmware damage. It causes memory damage. It causes signal circuit damage between CPU, random access memory on your motherboard and your computer, and basically channel bandwidth on, for example, I have a QPI CPU, which is total bandwidth over channels. The important thing is that these are being used on a human body, as I explained in my video. And I'm already getting up here to a very long video, so I'm going to try and make this short because I have to make another cut. But these are being used on the body to cause impairments. And thinking about the electronics, as I explained, when they're going into the power service end, and if they're actually doing that much damage to the circuitry, the medical equivalent of this is radiation and transcranial stimulation, which is what it actually is. And people have called it remote neural monitoring. It's not remote neural monitoring. It's called a BCI and CBI computer system. It is a brain-computer interface or a computer-brain interface. It is not remote neural monitoring, even though that is a generalization. But because of the posse of white supremacists on the internet, specifically YouTube, who will jump to deny and denounce your claims and will try to come on here and play victim. I do believe that a lot of that is what's going on right now, and you will never find these individuals because they're for hire and they work 24 hours around the clock and they have access to these satellites that they're conducting the surveillance on and radio towers, and really you will never find them. Unless you have someone with a lot of experience with commercial signals, very low frequency signals, EMF, ELF, SLF, and VHF, UHF, I believe is the primary range. But because of so much noise in the airways, it's really difficult because of all the commercial and scalar signals to find something that is operating at a ground static level or a ground electricity and is dual banded and might be riding on a commercial signal. Meaning dual banding is basically a high gigahertz signal or a megahertz signal or a radio signal that's a radio frequency dual banding another signal that is polarizing along that signal. And so while one signal gives you the initial feeling of heat and pain, the signal that's actually conducting the communication and the CBI stimulation is a much weaker signal because the body is very resistant to higher levels. But what the body is weak against is long-term potentiation and any signal that is consistent, constantly passing through the body. So the prime suspect area is the central brain, the thalamus, and the inner ear and the eustachian tube. And let me tell you, I have had a hard time to get an ear doctor, a sinus doctor, or anyone to move past looking at my eardrum. I have not mentioned anything about my eardrum to any of these doctors, but they find their way there every time and say, I don't see anything wrong with your ear or your eardrum, but there's a little wax in the canal. I didn't fucking say anything about my canal or my eardrum. I said my inner ear. This is what the doctors do. They either avoid the question, avoid the problem, or they don't know what the hell they're doing and don't know what the hell they're talking about and don't have the resources to help you. And then you'll have the other doctors who probably just know but don't want to do it, and because they don't understand what you're saying, over 3 years of torture as myself, they don't understand what you're saying. They just can't get a grasp of the issue because they're so used to just giving people eardrops for everything. And they'll look on an MRI and then they're looking at structural things because they don't understand that you're not going to see anything with your eye. You are not, they don't understand what a microwave is at that point, and it's pretty apparent and it's sad. They don't understand what microwaves do to the body, and you want to say this in the doctor's office, but you can't. A lot of what you will get from radiation and microwaves, it will never show in the body or tissue until later, years later. It takes a long time for some physiological change to be obvious, and that is why this is becoming a very important and attractive way to conduct eugenics and hate crime against African Americans, because they know the first person you're going to go to is a doctor, and you will be immediately defrauded as a schizophrenic or paranoid or whatever they want to call you, psychotic or something, for speaking about quantum physics, science, and things that you don't know at that point and can't explain, and the doctor knows even less. So the problem is that they are playing this boogeyman theorem and using these weapons to see how they can test and manipulate and abuse American citizens in order to call them lone soldiers, the lone killer, the Columbine killer, a pending serial murder in the works that they are trying to foster by antagonizing, terrorizing, and torturing you in order to get you to either commit suicide or to go out and shoot people. So the CBI-BCI system, in plain English, in addition to these radiological dispersals and the torture and the linear energy weapons, serve as a researched, tested, and being enforced and implemented method to basically just drive citizens crazy and to torture you nightly, abuse you nightly, and try to either get you to die from the eugenics, the radiation, to develop cancer, or to, as I just said, get you to go out and take your anger out and frustration out on the public in order to take more lives that the government can't do themselves or would like to, or to in turn commit suicide and take your life. It's a win-win scenario for them because they are censoring all of this information and preventing individuals from getting any help to get out of what is actually a torture program. And so they're calling them, they're probably in a database in a computer as a social dissident and socially deranged or deranged individual, ethically immoral person that needs to be euthanized or forced into the eugenics system. And that's what this is for. So because this is what genocide is. There is a genocide going on, and they are using these weapons and enforcing it on African Americans right now, and using things such as 9/11, the war on drugs, terrorism, to usurp privileges such as mass surveillance and being able to take on reckless military behavior, reckless corporate behavior, reckless private behavior, and foster military industrial development in order to undermine citizens' rights, federal rights, constitutional rights, to ensure that, as I just explained already about 10 minutes ago in the video, the wealthy white interests that fall apart and cannot be maintained because it is all inflation. When you actually get into an argument with them, then they want to throw you out of the room. I actually got walked out of an office by a doctor. He couldn't explain what I was talking about, but because they can't go any further to help you, otherwise they're going to be on the watch themselves. And I really do swear that they know that this is going to happen, and they understand it's for eugenics, and they don't want to help you on purpose. They will walk you out of the room because they understand that they're wrong, that they don't know enough, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about, and that schizophrenia is the easiest thing that you can give an individual as an illness when you can't explain something, and it sounds like what it's not. And if you read a book by John Metzel, I think this was in another video of mine, He basically goes into the details about how schizophrenia was used against African Americans in order to discriminate against them job-wise, financially, socially, politically. They were rounding African Americans who were protesting up, taking them to psychiatric offices and calling them psychotic, paranoid, schizophrenic. So go pick up the book about schizophrenia by John Metzel and read about it. The illness was used in 1962 during the Civil Rights Movement to label African Americans as crazy, psychotic ragers who are going to explode and blow up a store, for example, and going to kill everybody and going to take it out on all white citizens. This is the new game that they're playing. And so a lot of white supremacists are going to use this through law enforcement to come at you that way, because that's how it was used in 1962. This is their way to defraud African Americans of their rights. Things like workers' compensation, disability, lawsuits, you name it. And they're coming after young individuals, and if you are already under surveillance, expect that any material that these perverts are collecting on you while they're conducting this pervasive surveillance through invasive means, through a CBI, BCI system, that they are going to pick up anything that they can save a corporate entity, a government entity, or financial entity from having to pay you anything. And they are going to offer services such as surveillance and offer anything that they can in return be paid what you would have gotten instead. I apologize for the lengthiness of my videos. I have a bad habit of talking too much. But this is the last dispersal that I'm going to show. Now, that's the last of that. This was all a test done while the electricity was on in the home. This has been going on for over a year and a half now. All day, every day. It happens frantically, erratically, and it follows you around. As soon as all of these dispersals will start to occur in the event that I get near an electronic. And the key part of this is that it only occurs in one device at a time. Primarily, as far as most of the time it is only one device at a time, because I am only one individual, and the only individual that they are interested in the home is myself. So it's not ironic that every time I get near an electronic device that dispersals start occurring erratically and abruptly. So here's what I found out. I bought a UPS, a standalone power supply system that offers clean energy supplies. What I found out is the key part here. While the power is on through the smart meter at the home, there is enough electromagnetic fields built up in the home, potentially. I don't have the devices to test it because they go after individuals who cannot protect themselves. I don't have the money to do it. So I put devices on a UPS system that has a battery backup and should have no dirty electric on the power source of any electronic device. And what I found out is that it doesn't matter whether it's a new monitor, a new device, or an old monitor or old equipment. You will get electronic dispersals or radiological dispersals that are interrupting the power source on the device because the agency has bought or purchased hardware from military class surveillance systems that allow for electronics and devices to be monitored directly. What I did was, on the UPS system, while the power is on, you will get radiological dispersals. Now, with the power off to the house, you will not get any radiological dispersals in the house. Maybe little tiny ones. Rare, very rarely a little tiny one, because they are unable to send signals to that device for signals intelligence, because what it is using is radiological dispersal to monitor activity. And to disrupt functions, and to what is called, I forgot what it was called, but it was in an article. It is also a way to intercept information. They know that this device operates at this frequency and this amount of radio frequency information. So they'll know that a CPU is going to do this for this activity and these activities. And by sending a constant signal through it and using radiological dispersal, they can monitor how much power the system is using. And by monitoring the power, they can somewhat monitor the radio frequency emissions coming from the actual device itself. And it's called RFI, radio frequency interference. Each device emits its own radio frequency interference. And when you pass a signal through it, the amount of interference that this device is going to emit would be considered absorption distortion, and it's going to go from tower A to B, and tower B is going to receive distortion. Potentially. I'm not 100% sure how it's working, but that's an example of how telemetry works, logistics would work, and the way that the CBI BCI system is working by measuring ERFs and ERPs of the human brain by passing signals through radio frequencies and fields, which basically exacerbate the ERPs and ERFs, and they can be picked up as live signatures in the same way animals are scanned in an environment to see how many animals are. You're picking up life form signatures is what you're basically looking for. So the next test that I did was without power on in the home, and I put the monitor on the same UPS system. What I found out was immediately that you cannot get any dispersals or radiological dispersals out of it. Even if I walk near it, if I walk around the house with it, if I go down in the basement and I'm walking around the televisions or any of the other electronic devices, including the faucet, which was constantly grounding signals, none of them are dispersing or absorbing any impact from photons at all. And so what this test proves is that the smart meter on the home exacerbates and provides an apparatus, an environment for signals intelligence and interference, radio frequency interference. And by exacerbating the potentially the dirty electric, the amount of electrons in the air, and by commingling with chemtrails to allow for through surface quantum tunneling and through surface surveillance, through surface signals conduction. It allows for a signal that would be dampened by a material to conduct through the other side through quantum tunneling and maintain its consistency. It allows for directed energy weapons and linear energy weapons that are critically dependent on linear energy transfer, which is one electron to another, and the absorption and replacement. Linear energies, which are called masers, they project themselves by electron replacement. And so electron, you either have a high-powered beam, which is through a crystal or a diode that is using silicon material, crystal-like material that constantly refuses electrons to maintain a laser beam, or it is a linear energy weapon that is using free electrons to come in and replace the consistency that was lost in a signal. And this is used for narrow banding an ultrasound signal and dual banding signals that allows for very weak signals to travel very long distances for remote viewing and communication and signals intelligence, or allows for a maser narrowband, a infrared laser, infrared beam, or any pulsed type of weapon to propagate through materials and walls. And the main function of quantum tunneling is waveform, pulse form. And so you may lose some electrons, but the consistency of the pulse allows for the current or the alternating current to diffuse through the wall. And so depending on what material is mediating this function, if you're using high resistance materials such as aluminum, it's going to absorb a lot of those positive electrons. And what this means is that it has also diffused a large amount of negative electrons through it, because it has to have a polarity. And if an item does not have a polarity and it is being interacted with a alternating currents include negative electrons and positive electrons. So while you're using this aluminum shield, and this is the aluminum foil joke, you're using the aluminum foil, you're also not conducting the negative electrons, because all aluminum essentially does is absorb one polarity, and the only way to counteract that is to create a another barrier that is negatively polarized, if you understand what I'm saying. So if anything, the signal or pulse is looking for a ground, and if you aren't absorbing that polarity, it will continue through quantum tunneling until it either diffuses itself and there are no more electrons or secondary electron functions to propagate through the material, or it meets ground and it grounds into an item, device, or a metal where it disperses. So I would assume that that is a very basic understanding of what they're actually using. And just to finish up really quickly, my test that I ran without the power on in the home proved my entire case, at least on a very functional level. And you know, a lot of doctors will call you crazy and ignore everything you say. They're there to discriminate against you. These people are paid a lot of money to discriminate against you and be very ignorant, and basically to regurgitate medical information that is incorrect, because they are not engineers, they are not signals engineers, they are not signal analysts, they are not individuals who are experienced with very low frequency signals at any point of the day. And no doctor can deny what you're claiming on the fact that they read a book that says what you're talking about sounds like this. That happens with a lot of things in life that sound like something, but because that's that doctor's profession, that's the only answer that they're going to give you, that's the only thing they're going to do for you, and they will walk you right out of the office without any help or anything that you're asking for, because they don't believe you and they don't understand what the hell they're talking about, let alone what you're talking about.